What up, everybody? Welcome to Minorly Important, the podcast where we talk about minor league sports. I'm your host, Kevin Marlow. I'm joined here by my co-host, Colin Shull. Colin, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing good, man. I'm glad I can finally, sit here with during an episode for once, and I'm not as busy as what I was.
Yeah, you only
the
missed
past
one.
2 weeks.
You only missed one episode, but
Yeah, and the Distillers hockey game though. Too,
yeah,
but.
it's all right. But now, Dylan and Ryan aren't here tonight, but we are joined here by the GM of the Noblesville Boom, Chris Taylor. Chris, how's it going?
It's going great. Appreciate you guys having me on, and it's great to see you. It's been a while.
Yeah.
So this is exciting.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, like I said, Chris is the general manager of the Boom, but he's also, you said, a scout for the Pacers?
Yeah, it's pro scout for the Pacers as well.
Awesome. Well, Chris, why don't you talk about your journey and tell us how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, I'll give you the abridged version, but that's appreciative of this podcast in general. Minorly Important is fantastic. I got my start in the minor leagues right out of college with the Maine Red Claws, now the Maine Celtics, way back in 2011. Not to date myself, but so at that time it was the NBA D League. Very different, from where we are today. I'm sure we'll get into that later, which is pretty cool to see the kind of trend and really legitimization of minor league basketball. But so that's how I got my start, doing both things on the business and basketball side. Really just trying to break in any way that I could. That's where I was able to kind of find my initial passion, truly on the basketball side, from roster construction, scouting, basketball operations, you name it. So spent the season there with them. At that time, they were the affiliate of the Boston Celtics, the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Charlotte Bobcats. That's how long ago that was. So, and then after that season, was fortunate to gain a basketball operations internship in the summer of 2012 with the Pacers, and have been here ever since. So, was with the Pacers full time for 5 or 6 seasons, and then had the chance to transition to the G League, Fort Wayne Mad Ants, Indiana Mad Ants, and now Noblesville Boom. So, and just completed my 4th season as GM.
That's awesome. And then you also have a charity organization that you're in charge of, correct?
Yeah. So I'm from a small town in Maine, Calais, Maine, originally. It's kind of the edge of the earth, almost as far east in the country as you can go. But yeah, I have a small nonprofit in my hometown, the Blue Devil Fund, where the Blue Devils was our high school mascot, and just a way to give back to the community through a ton of different kind of initiatives, mostly focused on the youth back there. Just knocked out we do a holiday book drive in memory of my grandmother. She was a principal at the elementary school that I went to for over 40 years, just a way to give back. And over the years, we've donated over 8,000 books to elementary schools across my county. Yeah, it's exciting. Good way to Maine, probably not many people listening to this know, but is a basketball crazy state as well, very similar to Indiana. That's why I love it here so much too. So there's a ton of Pacers fans and Boom fans in my little hometown in Maine. So it's cool to connect the dots there.
That's awesome. Well, Chris and I got to know each other, and Colin, when we were all working in Fort Wayne. And little known fact, Chris helped us order all of the gear that we had. So we are very appreciative of Chris and all of the help that you gave us when we were running the drum line there. And but overall, you were talking about the transformation of the G League over the years. What do you think is the craziest change that you've seen so far?
That's a really good question. It's pretty tough to pinpoint one singular kind of growth aspect. I think when you look at it as a whole, just the way that NBA teams have invested so much, and understand that this is a true breeding ground for NBA talent. Just from practice facilities to updating locker rooms and arenas, or little things like post-game meals, just getting better flights. All those little things add up. I think back to when I started, like I said, in the NBA DL, back in 2011 compared to now. It's almost night and day, which is kind of the difference there. But I would say, I guess, as I think about it more too, I think from the league level, player their investments in player salaries is something huge. When I first started, it was a unique. They had A, B, and C contracts, and you could only. It was kind of the minor league way of having a little bit of a salary cap compared to the NBA. But you could only. There were regulations, stipulations. You could only have. I think it was 2 A contracts, and then say 5 B contracts, and the rest had to be C contracts. Compared to now, a C contract was it was pennies, for lack of a better phrase. So you can tell that as a result of team buying in so much to the league, and then the league itself, really investing more financially, the contracts are better. There's just one standard NBA NBA G League contract now, one standard level, and that's helped with the quality of players. Because they can truly, achieve their dreams while making a livable wage, and that persuades more players to stay stateside, I think. So that's one thing that comes to mind.
Cool. And then they instituted the two-way contract. I can't remember what year, but that was recently after it became the G League. Am I right?
Yeah, that was probably 5 years ago, I want to say, 5 or 6 years. That was the first year of two-way contracts. And that's really improved too. And I think again, it just shows the partnership and investment from the NBA teams to the G League, where you have players that maybe aren't quite ready to perform every day at the NBA level, and that understanding that they have to develop, and this is the best pathway to do that. So you can make a little bit of extra money, have some of the NBA resources, be around the NBA team. Without so much stipulations, but with that understanding that you can bounce back and forth between NBA club and G League club to achieve that ultimate goal of playing in the NBA.
Yeah, that's awesome. Who would you say is probably one of the coolest stories that you've seen them come from the G League and move their way up to the NBA?
Ooh, that's a really good question as well. I think first name that comes to mind that came through our program is O'Shea Brissett. A player that he was on a two-way contract with the Toronto Raptors, and played for the Raptors 905. And then, during that season, I was affected by COVID. And then fast forward when they had the bubble season where all G League teams that wanted to participate were down in Orlando. We were fortunately one of the teams that opted to play in that. So you go through the expansion draft. And we had a chance, led by Brian Levy, we had a chance to draft O'Shea shockingly in the second round of the G League draft that year.
Jeez.
He exploded, and an all G League team, vote at the end of that bubble season, earned a call up to the Pacers. Played for us for a few years, and then fast forward, he was an NBA champion last year with the Boston Celtics. So talk about a really cool, rise for O'Shea, and plus he's one of my favorite players that I've ever worked with. He's a phenomenal person, really bought in, and it was cool to see behind the curtain too, because he bought in to what the G League was about. Understood the development component of it. Always had his aspirations, and his eyes set on the prize, and obviously reached the pinnacle by winning a championship. So that's the first one that comes to mind. That's a really cool story.
That's awesome. It's awesome, and kind of convenient that it's the last two. He played for the last two Eastern Conference championship teams, which I was doing some research, and it looks like there are 12 players between both the Pacers and the Thunder that have G League experience. That's, like I said, that was a quick search, so might be a little bit more than that, but there are at least 12 players between the two rosters that have G League experience, which just goes to show that in the NBA Finals with that many alumni from the G League, how much of an impact it's starting to make on the league.
No question. Yeah, I think, and everyone recognizes that. The parity between the two leagues, and just how important that is to developing these guys to play at the NBA level. We were talking about it last night. Pascal Siakam was a G League Finals MVP when he was with Toronto playing with the 905, and then fast forward, he just got Eastern Conference Finals MVP, to lead the Pacers to the finals. So that's again a really neat story of just someone that's paid their dues, embraced the grind, as we say within our organization, and then you see the dividends on the other side.
Yeah. Um, that also leads me to my next thing. I know you were there last night for the Eastern Conference Finals, Game 6. Can you kind of describe what that was like last night?
Yeah, absolutely. The cool show and tell. We got the
Yeah,
finals hat.
let's go.
Yeah, it was the Gainbridge Fieldhouse was rocking. That was probably the best crowd in my time here. I've been fortunate to be with the organization for 13 years now. And that was the most intense, loud, every possession, crowd was locked in, which always makes it that much more fun. And you can
Yeah.
tell that the players certainly feed off of that. And then, fast forward, it's part of the process. The job's far from over. Loftier aspirations for all of us, but tried my best to, be in the moment, and just, appreciate what the small part that I contributed, at the G League level and working with some of these players and all of our staff, but then also taking a step back and just, admiring, the coaching staff, Coach Carlisle and everybody, the Pacers front office, Kevin Pritchard and Chad Buchanan and Ted Wu, Ryan Carr and Vance Catlin, all those guys, just all the work that they put in and just taking a step back and kind of being a fly on the wall, and seeing, the accomplishment shared throughout that huge group was really special. Had the opportunity to be in the locker room, as all the post game, interviews and some champagne is being passed around. Again, it's not the ultimate celebration that we all strive for, but it's part of that journey. Seeing the trophies, just all those things come to fruition. It was special and something that I've certainly, dreamed about. It's something that we had hoped for, since I was a little kid. That's something that you never really even think you're going to be a part of. So now to say that, we're going to be competing in the NBA Finals against a really talented Oklahoma City team. But again, it's all part of that journey, and it was fun.
Yeah, I know that kind of I was never athletically gifted enough to be playing on a team of the level that we've all been involved in. But you and all of the basketball operations staff, when we were doing the drumline, made us feel like we were all one big family, to the point where like you and I still text, just not even about basketball, still back and forth. Like it's one of the coolest things ever. And I remember walking in before a game and sitting courtside with you, watching shoot around and having that kind of access. And first off, thank you for all of that. That's one of some of the most fun I've ever had, and the closest I've ever been to being in a well, I mean, I was in pro sports, but that kind of thing. And I know Colin feels the same way with that like we felt just as much of that staff as you. I mean, heck, the last game we ever got to do, I was in the locker room with you and Tom and the players. That was just a really cool moment.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. No, thank you necessary, though. I mean, that's the greatest part, I think, about working this business that we are. It's everybody's so connected. You have that family tie to everybody within the organization. I know, not just blowing smoke here, but we told you guys. I mean, you guys were such a huge part of what we were doing, the success we had on the court. The guys loved the energy and the emotion, and the way you kind of heckling the opposing team, and you name it, all those things from the Coliseum days.
Yeah.
Which truly made an impact. You commented earlier about helping order the drumline, kind of uniforms, for lack of a better phrase, or whatever it was. But that's all part of it. It's pretty cool, and now I'm appreciative of the relationships, and that's like I said, that's the funnest part of what we do. Is the relationships from really all walks of life, and all kind of tied together through a little bouncing ball, which doesn't really seem possible, but it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, no, heck, I remember the Super Bowl party, the staff Super Bowl party. That was a lot of fun, and that was actually the first time I got to meet Tom, and that was before he was our head coach. So,
Yeah, that's going way back. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
sure we can share some Steve Gansey stories. I don't know if you guys
yes,
have plans to have Gans on, but I think he'd be
we have,
We've talked about it.
yeah,
great. Yeah,
would
yeah, that's
definitely love to have Gans on.
minor league legend, or
Yes,
legend in general, but also he checks the minor league box as well. But yeah, that And that's the cool part, right? I think you look back to those years in Fort Wayne. Coach Hankins just completed his 5th season as our head coach. And he was a two-way coach before that with the Pacers. That's kind of his first introduction to our G League staff. That was when Gansey was our head coach, and again welcomed in with open arms and fit in perfectly. And really, you could go through a laundry list of our coaches and front office staff that have come through, and we still keep in touch. We always joke at NBA Summer League every year in Vegas that we really should work a little harder to put together like a little Mad Ants alum, dinner, so to just to get everybody back together, because there's people from multiple teams, that are still working at the NBA level and even the G League level. I got quite a few texts from guys last night, after the Pacers secured that Game 6 victory. It's neat. Every time you see a name pop up, kind of your mind instantly goes down memory lane, thinking about those. You just kind of, what it's a random game or something in practice they might have done, or a player that we work closely with, you name it. And that's I think what makes the G League even more unique and special than than even the NBA, just because you're truly in the trenches and doing everything across the board and whatever's asked. And if we were in the arena and you guys needed a hand rolling out the drums, that we were a text away or whatever the case was. And the same thing, if we needed a last second rebounder, like you guys were there. I know you were hopping out there, and that's the really cool part, because we're all in it together, and the family component is real.
Yeah, I remember running score clock at the open tryouts a couple of years, and guys like yelling at me, "That was a 3," and I'm like, "You realize I'm like down on the floor? I can't see where you were shooting from sometimes." Like,
yeah, thinking that the outcome of those games is what matters. But
yeah.
Yeah. You got to put more time. I remember I ran time with you. I was there with Kevin, and I ran time with him while he was running the scoreboard.
Yeah, and they kept yelling at us for not doing our job, and I'm like, bro, it doesn't matter. It doesn't. They're looking at how you shoot and how, like, it's not about that.
That's right. You shouldn't have traveled on the carry or on the gather anyway, and then the shot wouldn't have mattered.
Now, are you guys going to have open tryouts like that again in Noblesville too?
Yeah. So this past year, so we were still playing all of our games at Gamebridge Fieldhouse as the new arena was being built, but we held one this past year in Noblesville. That was our kind of first introduction to the city. That was great attendance. So yeah, we'll still do. That's the plan. That's again a pretty cool component of the G League, is each team hosts these open tryouts. Each team can host up to 3. We had a player that made our team for this full season out of that tryout, which was great. And I think historically, since I've been involved with the team, I think every year but last year we've had a player that has made the final team, fighting their way through training camp and everything from the tryout. So those create really cool stories too.
Yeah. Ron Howard was one of those open tryout stories, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. That's one of the crazier stories, I think, in this league, and obviously very neat that it came out of our organization. Yeah, showed up at an open tryout, a little bit, really didn't know what to expect. Ended up, having a legendary career with NBA call-ups, a ton of franchise records, and I think league records as well. And ended up with his number retired. And you don't get a nickname, Mr. Team anything, so Mr. Madden, that shows his dedication, and wild that the foundation came from an open trial.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you guys for recognizing Steph and Hicks too, because I thought that was so cool.
Yeah, no,
he's been a part of the team a lot.
Yeah, that was a no-brainer. I don't want to take the credit for it, but obviously I've been privy to work with Steph for multiple seasons, and know what a phenomenal human he is off the court. And saw him, some of the things that we talked about, saw him go from when I first got my first start with the Mad Ants. He was a top of the league contributor. earned a 10-day contract with the Pacers, was playing summer leagues, was always in the mix, for end of season awards and a lot of NBA teams calling. To then now this past year, at the end of his playing career, he had transitioned to being a mentor and found his voice in the locker room and was open to sharing his experiences with our younger players, and to see that transition and him make those strides and accept the role and be excited about it. And still, when his number got called, he performed. His last game, he started for us. The game that we retired his number, he started for us. And first bucket of the game, catch and shoot corner three, was classic Steph Hicks. That was special. So for us to be able to, like I said, a no-brainer. I think, again, it aligns with, our family values as an organization and things that we push for. We recognize his sacrifices and everything that he's contributed to the organization from the beginning. He didn't have to, have loyalty to us, but he certainly did. And he's a friend for life. And I know I speak for everyone that's worked with him firsthand. As, going to Brian Levy and Coach Gansey and Coach Hankins and, you guys, anybody that they loved him in the community. It was special. It was kind of cool, again, just kind of sharing some of these stories because it's applicable to the subject here. Surprised him by flying his mother and his fiance in for that game. He had no idea. That was some world-class trickery, I think. Kind of some funny stories behind the scenes. So we had the shirts printed up with 17 on them and Hicks on the back that all the players were going to wear during warm-ups. Again, that was a surprise. So we had them set up in the locker room pregame with all the jerseys. So Steph came in then, and he got a little emotional. He'll give me a hard time for me calling him out like this publicly, but he got a little bit emotional then. He was like, "All right, this is it. Like there won't be any more." He didn't know what the halftime kind of dedication was going to be. We just told him that there was going to be some a little presentation at the half. I'm sure he assumed it was probably around him, but he didn't truly know. So he was like, "This is it. This is the only time there might be some tears. It'll be fine." But man, when the players lined up just before running out the tunnel onto the court for pregame warmups, we had his mom and his fiance sitting on our bench in their Steph Hicks shirts, and the second they locked eyes, he lost it. So it's neat when you compare some of those emotional components with just it's a reminder of why we do what we do. It's not strictly just trying to develop players and staff to kind of achieve their dreams, whether that's the NBA or better basketball opportunities, like we always say. But it's also that human component. We spend a lot of time together. From traveling on the road to practices, and for the most part, players, but staff too, are away from their families, right, during the course of the season.
Yeah.
So we rely on each other so heavily, and to see the entire team, and players that they don't have the relationship with Steph like a lot of our staff does because they're new, or some guys we had just traded for at the G League trade deadline, they came in, or some of our two-ways weren't around a ton, and they completely bought in, to what we were doing, and really celebrated that. That's the really cool part, and it was special.
That's awesome. I remember several times because we were right there courtside, right behind that first row of people right next to the opposing team's bench. But I remember Steph doing a huge slam dunk and then looking at us and like doing the drumming motion after he hit a huge dunk several times. And it wasn't just him. I know Gabe York did it one time, and I mean, Walt Lemon Jr. has done it, but Steph was the first one to really do it, and it kind of became a tradition of big name players on the team doing that as soon as they dunk in front of the basket we were at to hit that, because they knew we'd hit that. We had one really special groove that we would hit for a big play, and so that was I loved Steph, and Steph would always come up and tell us how great we had done and thank us for what we did, and Steph became a good friend on that front.
Yeah, and that's the really cool part of it all. From traveling to different G League arenas, fans are hit or miss, and to have an atmosphere like that, and to have you guys locked in, with that stuff, and play off the game, just showed you guys were truly engaged, and and played a part in, the momentum swings, whatever it may be. I remember Justin Anderson hit some threes, and he was kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You guys were, like I said, yeah, it's very much a part of the ebbs and flows of the game, which is special in itself.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that. But we do want to ask, like, what do you do what is your day-to-day like as a GM in the G League?
It definitely varies. I always tell people, it depends whether it's in season or off season, but then also a game day or not game day. Our schedules are really all over the place. Always say, I think a lot of times the common conception is that just it's constant basketball, or just watching film or at games or whatever the case may be, which it's all basketball centric, of course, but the vast majority of what we do, isn't it's not watching basketball. It's kind of all the behind the scenes, operational things that make the team tick. Working on budget, a ton of communication that I always tell everybody. I'm on my phone almost all the time. Whether it's talking to agents, talking to, it's different at the G League level too, because we're obviously in constant communication with the Pacers because we're trying to mimic what they do culturally on the court. Make sure that we're all aligned with our plans, player development wise, or just general kind of rules and guidelines type of thing. So constantly talking to everybody at with the Pacers, but then within our own staff as well. Constant communication with our coaching staff, our training staff, our strength coach, our assistants, basketball ops, support staff, whatever it is. Just because we're still an organization, although we're a little bit smaller compared to NBA clubs, still all moving in the right direction. Additionally, you're communicating with the business side. Talking to Tim and co on the business side to make sure we're helping with any community appearances or whatever helping out sponsorship deals or whatever the case is. So those things. And then, working on team travel. There's always, we joke, and not to make light of firemen and what they're actually doing, but we always joke like we're kind of firemen. You never really know what's going to pop up. You're running around putting out different fires because when there's teams involved and that many players on a roster and going back, agents, like there's always somebody that needs something. Somebody's not happy with playing time or, or they maybe want to, be seen in a different light, want additional plays ran for them, whatever it is, or someone has an ankle sprain. We're trying to figure out what the timeline is for their return to play, all those kind of things. So, so much of it's kind of that. It's just kind of, that's why I like to laugh too, just thinking like general manager. You're generally over a lot of things, and you're being pulled in a lot of different directions. But obviously at the root is hoops, which is why it's so enjoyable. But, back to the original question, kind of what goes on day to day. If it's not a game day, I'm at every practice. Coming in the morning, kind of get caught up on news around the league. Both NBA and G League, but also college, international. Just kind of reading articles, checking in, seeing what's going on at the pulse of everything, watching some film, getting caught up. Of course, answering some emails, things like that, and then get ready to jump in the coaches meeting. Just kind of see where everyone's at, touch base with our medical staff. See if everybody's kind of healthy and good to go. Go to practice, and then we just kind of afterwards reconvene, chat about what's next. Kind of go over the necessary details for upcoming travel or whatever it is. And then game days, those are pretty routine, which is great. Just come in the mornings, get ready to go to shoot around. And kind of in between shoot around and games, it's really just kind of get caught up on things. And I like to watch some film on the upcoming opponent, just kind of refresh myself. And then, the games are the fun part, of course. I travel with the team, almost on every road trip. And then, this past season had more scouting duties. So I was also hitting the road, scouting G League and NBA games. So, looking at my schedule, I think this past season I was at home an average of like 3 to 4 days a month. So it was heavy on the road. But I love it, and it's all basketball. So I'll take everything I can get. And then transition to the off season. It's a little bit slower, but I think that's where you really put your scouting hat on. And it's all focused on NBA draft prep. And you're looking at all these players in different lenses, not just from to see if they can help at an NBA level, but also obviously we're looking at a G League level as well. So, whether that's two ways, Exhibit 10 contract type players, kind of think that a guy's will go in a G League draft. I also help put together our summer league team. So you're really just kind of doing all these kind of scouting components that kind of help ultimately will help put our team together. So that's what comes with that. And again, a lot of travel in the off season. I'm very fortunate to be able to attend like the NBA Draft Combine in Chicago. I'll be at summer leagues, the California Classic. They do one in Sacramento or San Francisco. I got to figure out which one I'm going to go to, and then like everybody else in the league, I'll be in Vegas for a couple weeks in July for NBA Summer League there. And then there's a few other scouting events, and then like I said, involved in the Pacers, draft night, all those draft workouts, and they're in the war room on draft night. And then finally in August is kind of when things slow down a little bit. Get to put our feet up, but yeah. So that's a long-winded answer, but that's kind of everything that goes in, and truly explains why day to day is so varied.
Well, no, and like you and I had been texting back and forth about trying to set this up for a while, and especially as deep as the Pacers are going, it just kept, well, can we do it? Yeah, let's try it now. And, I'm so glad we finally got it to work out and lined up, and probably worked out best because now you get to tell us, like, your stories from last night about being in the locker room after the Eastern Conference Championship being clinched and all of that. And that's awesome. And truly, like, you do wear many hats. And we all noticed that when we were working together. I always felt horrible when I had to bring you like our Nike order to order back then, because I was like, man, I know he's slammed, but we like I said earlier, we really appreciated all the help and support that you gave us.
No, it's all part of it. Like I said, if somebody, if you don't do it, then it's not going to get done. That's kind of always been my approach as well, which is cool. But no, it all plays a part in the ultimate, our bigger kind of goals on success. So that's the fun in it as well.
Yeah. Colin, you got anything?
Yeah. How does the G League draft work? So is it full of two-way players who don't sign contract extensions are also in that draft too? Plus players who didn't get drafted in the NBA draft?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, it's definitely varied. The player pool, it's made up of a lot of different options. So it's I don't know how deep we want to get into like Exhibit 10 contracts and things like that, but so a lot of times, so Exhibit 10 contracts, players sign them with the idea that primarily they'll go to NBA training camps and then be allocated to their G League team if they don't ultimately make the NBA roster, and then they get a little financial bonus, if that happens. So, but there's also other avenues where you can get invited to an NBA training camp but not sign one of those contracts, so you're not only deemed to go to the G League affiliate of the team that you're in training camp with. So say if a player goes into an NBA training camp, ultimately doesn't make the cut, gets waived, and if they want to play in the G League, then they'll go into the G League draft. Other players that played in like NBA Summer League and ultimately didn't end up on an NBA roster, if they want to play in the G, they'll end up in the draft. Also another component, each team retains player rights for 2 seasons after they play with them. It's kind of basically like a trade chip that, since all players are on single season contracts, it's just a way, it helps us to be able to use assets, in the future. And also if it's kind of first right of refusal, if we want a player to return for us, then we own their rights. So first right of refusal. And then if you don't, if they don't want to come back to you, then you can trade them. But then ultimately, if you have a player right, they want to play in the G League and there's just not the opportunity on your roster, then you'll rescind their rights and then they'll end up in the G League player pool as well. And then there's international players. So a lot of players that have played, they might be U.S. born, but have played internationally in the past and have never played in the G League. If they want to give that a try, they'll get their names thrown in. So a lot of different avenues. And like you said, too, players that go undrafted in the NBA draft, whether they play summer league or not, they'll end up in the player pool. So each team can recommend a handful of players as well. And those could come from the local tryout, or just other players that you kind of have a relationship with or you'd like to see in the draft, whether you want to draft them or not. Just kind of help them get in the draft. So yeah, it's a pretty wide range of who ends up in the G League player pool, draft pool. Sorry. But that's also kind of the exciting part of it because you just never know. And in recent years, you'll see some of these guys, like I said, going back to high-level players that get waived from NBA rosters in training camps, and they'll find themselves in the G League draft last second. It's also the kind of fun part of the G League draft is it occurs on a Saturday, and then G League training camps begin on that following Monday. So it's like it's bang, bang, bang. And players are still filtering into the draft up until, it's 1 or 2 days beforehand. So teams really have to be, get your prep work in early because you know that it's going to change. But yeah, that's why you've seen, some of these higher level players filter in into the G League draft. I mean, for example, playing for the Knicks in this series, Landry Shamet, he was the second overall pick in the G League draft this year by the Westchester Knicks, and then he obviously earned a call up to New York and now is contributing at the conference finals level. So again, just kind of goes to show the legitimization of the league itself too.
That's awesome. I mean, it's crazy the amount of exposure the G League has been getting over the years. Because I remember when we started, and it was still the D League at that point. We were there the season right before it switched from the D League to the G League. And I remember people like, what is that? What is the D League? And now, like, there was, Gabe York was on an Amazon documentary about different G League players trying to make it to the NBA, and like it was awesome to be, to see that and see how much this league has grown, and yeah, it's just crazy, and the amount of alumni that are in the league now. So
I think it's crazy. Oh, I'm sorry, Chris.
No, you're all good. I was just going to say
I
think the percentage of it's over 63%, or it might be up to 66 or something of current NBA players that have spent time in the G League. So, yeah. Sorry, Colin.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say how, like, I remember being in that first season, in the D League, and when it got switched to the G, it just seems like everything got better after that. Like, more competitive, more players, just more opportunity for everybody, essentially.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously, there's always been amazing players, and you look at just our franchise, the call-up list. There's some great players that came when it was the D League and things were just starting, and certainly some amazing players, that have played from the beginning. But I think, now it's definitely it's more consistent competitiveness across the board. And you look at it, like I said, when I got my start back in 2011, which in the grand scheme of things wasn't that long ago, 3 affiliates, we're the feeder team for 3 different NBA programs, and now every team has their own affiliate. This past year was the first year where all 30 NBA franchises had their own G League team, plus Mexico City, so there's 31 G League teams. So I think, that alone, just looking at that number, it shows that, it's a real deal. And that carrot of the NBA dangling there, it's real, and teams recognize that, and players recognize that too. And I think that's why they bring it every night. You come to a G League game. I've had a lot of conversations with people similar to what you said, Kev, where they might be like, not exactly sure what this is, or exactly what level of play this is. And then they go and you talk to them post game. They're like, wow. I mean, these guys, they compete for the full 48 minutes, and they're giving it their all because players recognize it's a job interview for the entire season, and they lock in and they truly give it their all.
Well, it's not just you're not just right there at the NBA if you're a player. It goes for staff, training staff, game day operations, front office. Like, I mean, we've had several people. Ryan Stevens, who's now working for PR for the Indiana Fever. We've got, John Nolan now is the Indiana Fever radio broadcaster. Several people that have moved up from the G League to the NBA. Several call-ups. There was a dance team member who's now a pace-mate, and we've had all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, you always fail to mention that you got called up too.
I don't like to, brag.
That was a great thing for our organization to celebrate.
Yeah, no, that was a lot of fun. For those of you that don't know, I did get a NBA call up. I was sitting there with my buddies from High Octane, who are the Pacers, Fever. I think they've been your guys' drum line while you've been in Indy. And I was at it. We were at a game, and they were short a bass drummer, which is what I play. And I get a text from my buddy Kerry, and he's like, "Yo, you want to play bass drum tonight? We'll get you a shirt and everything." And it was a lot of fun. Had to learn the music on the fly, but that was all part of pro sports entertainment. So
Hey, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready, right?
right,
That's our mantra.
yep,
That's true no matter what you're doing. Oh, I think, and you look at it from the front office side too. I mean, I celebrate Brian Levy all the time. He got the call up. He's a full-time pro scout for the Pacers, and Mo Baker, one of our assistant coaches. Now he's a player development coach for the Pacers, and yeah, Maria Whitty. Shout out to Maria. She was our athletic trainer for a couple years. She just got promoted to the Fever full-time. Ayami Soto, Jason Manikowski, Eric Huddleston, you name it. These were all two strength coaches and a trainer that are now working for the Pacers. So yeah, I think a lot of people think the G is just for the development of on court talent, but when you look at it, it's off the court too. Whether it's the training room, the strength room, front office, coaching, all those things. So it brings people together for a shared goal. I think, and here we really try to preach that, kind of team success equals individual success. Where I think a lot of times it's easy to look at minor league sports and think that, it's only individual success that's going to help. If I'm good at what I do, then that's going to help me take the step to the next level. Or if you're on the court, players think, well, the guy that scores all the points, that's how I'm going to get a call up to the NBA, and that's really not the case. Teams look at winning just as important as individual stats and being able to buy in and kind of recognizing your role and performing your role to the best of your abilities. Case in point with you getting the Octane call up, it's the same thing. If you weren't doing that at the high level, in Fort Wayne, then they wouldn't have called you and asked. So it's
yeah.
all part of it.
Oh, and I mean, and going to your point about the team atmosphere, I think the Pacers organization embodies that the most. I mean, look at the team this year. You shut down Halliburton. All the other four people on the court can hit a corner three or crazy shot. Pascal, Miles Turner, like all of those guys could go off at any moment, and then you have five other guys on the bench, and it's just the Pacers organization has always felt like that like it's just all the way through is like the next man up. And they may not have the biggest star in the NBA, but because they play team basketball and the entire organization plays team, business and everything that they do, it works. And I think, you really embodied that with how much you helped us out. You embodied that with the team and like playing. Clearly your teams have put the Pacers in the position that they're in now because, of how great of a job you do. So that's hats off to you and
Well,
in the organization.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, I think that's something that we definitely focus on. We talked about it a lot this year at the G League level, where every different game we could really celebrate a different player. Jaleel Okafor had a phenomenal season for us, earning a call-up and making the All-Showcase team. And then at the end of the year, Ray J. Dennis, one of our two-ways, was selected to the All-G League team at the end of the year. And we had other guys that accomplished a lot during the course of the year, but it's like on a game-to-game basis, we could celebrate a different person for having player of the game type of thing any given night, and that's certainly something that we preach. We try our best, and then to your point too of just seeing the little ways that we're trying hard to support the Pacers any way that we can, and to see guys like Ben Shepherd who played a great deal for us a couple years ago. Jarris Walker, who's gotten some time. He played a lot for us this past 2 years ago. Even Furphy's gotten some time, who suited up for us some this year. And we go back to the last game of the regular season for the Pacers. They got a huge win over the Cleveland Cavaliers that ultimately got us into the final position that we were going in the playoffs. And that was a game that was the best players were our two ways. It was Quentin Jackson, Ray J. Dennis, and Enrique Freeman. Johnny Furphy. Again, it's players that were in the G League, spent a lot of time in the G League. Recognize that, kind of climbed out of the mud, so to speak, and then contributed at the highest level. So it's all part of that, and people buying into the system and seeing the successes.
Yeah, I was saying, we were talking about people getting called up and whatnot, and one player that stuck out to me was he played for the South Bay Lakers. His name was Andre Ingram, and I just think his story was so cool because of how long he was in the D League and the G League before he got his 10-day call up, and he actually ended up playing 6 games for the Lakers when he got called up. So, which I thought was pretty cool. It's a really cool story about that guy.
No, 100%. Yeah, you look at his G League numbers. He owns a lot of league records. I don't know him personally, but everything I've heard, he's just an incredible human. A person who clearly was bought in on his goal, never gave up. Continued to sacrifice and play in South Bay year after year, and made a positive impact. And then once he was given an opportunity, and that's the other thing we say about this league too. We talk to our players. You're an opportunity away from potentially changing your life, and that's what it took for Andre. He got the call, and back to the point earlier too of if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. His number was called. He stepped in, and you're playing at a totally different stage, with the Lakers.
Yeah. I mean, he dropped 20 points. I think he dropped like over 20 points in his first NBA game, which is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, and that's what this league is made up of incredibly special stories like that, and it shows that the talent's there. A lot of times it's just are you going to find yourself in the right situation to warrant that opportunity, and then when you are you going to take advantage?
And he did, definitely,
certainly did.
How do you manage like building a team? Because not only do you have to worry about like injury and stuff like that a normal or who's hot and who's not and stuff like that a normal GM has to deal with, you also have to worry about call-ups, and that's the ultimate goal. So how do you balance building a team that can still keeping that team chemistry together but also trying to get guys called up left and right?
Yeah, great question. It's definitely unique. I think unique to our league or minor leagues in general. And we talk a lot about the power of the and. We say it's, if you're strictly focused on winning, probably it's not going to work for you. So we have to focus on winning and developing, or I say a lot, winning while developing. For myself, I critique myself, not strictly just on the wins and losses, or not strictly just on, if we can help players get call-ups, to kind of achieve their dreams. It's a combination of both. And that's certainly very prevalent as we're working through to construct a roster. It's players that fit our system, but then also I'm a huge believer in if you have high character players in the locker room, that buy into that team concept, understand what we're about, align with our cultural goals, and are going to sacrifice, kind of some of those personal, kind of metrics for the better part of the team, then you're going to end up in a great spot across the board. And fortunately, for the past few years, we've been able to do that. We've had an incredibly high character group of players year in and year out, even though it's kind of been a revolving door of players, of course, because that's the nature of this league. But we've also had high level, call-ups in every season, players that are contributing now at the NBA level and all those things. So it's definitely something that's in the back of your mind, and because you are, you want to have the best talented team on paper. That's a lot of conversations between coach and I, because coaches want to win, as anybody does. If you're in this business, you're competitive, and the losses don't come any easier just because, hey, we didn't have any of our two ways and 2 of our players received a call up, so we're a little undermanned, so to speak. But that doesn't make life any easier. But that is also, you got to keep in the back of your mind, like we're also working towards that, in addition to the win. So it's kind of just something that constantly plays in the back of my mind.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know several seasons where we'd start off hot and then all of a sudden 3 or 4 players would get called up, and then there'd be a couple games that, little undermanned and didn't quite go our way, and then it would go, you'd have to refill and go back through. And I mean, it always had a really good competitive product on the floor. And so shout out to you again. And but that's got to be hard. That's got to be like, one, you think you've got this solid team and core put together, and then 3 guys, get call-ups because they're doing so well. But then you have to, like you said, tell yourself that that's the goal and that's what you're working towards, and then refill and use that old motto of next man up.
Yeah, I think it's a reminder that the job's never really done, regardless of what level you're at. Probably even it's under a little bit more of a magnifying glass here because you are constantly, watching film and scouting to try to see, who else might be out there because you're going through a million different scenarios. And we talk with our coaching staff a lot too because, huge credit to those guys because they have to have, it's not just a singular or maybe an A and B game plan. You've got to have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, essentially, because you never know exactly who's going to be on a G League roster from a night-to-night basis. Now with 3 two-way players, plus, like you said, call-ups and assignments and everything, it's not strictly just looking at, who's hurt and who's not. There's so many other different factors, and you've got to have multiple different plans in place because that thing changes a lot. So, again, it's my job. I think compared to coaching, my job's pretty easy because those guys have to, have a million different game plans. Now, hopefully Tom doesn't hear that because I don't like to, give him too much credit. But yeah, it's some of those things that a lot of times fans don't think about. I know I certainly, before getting into this, that was something that didn't cross my mind. But it was a lot of prep work.
Right. Do you have any aspirations of moving up, getting your call up?
Certainly, yeah. I mean, I'm very appreciative of this opportunity, that I currently have, and this is something that I always dreamed of. But yeah, to be transparent, I mean, this is a stepping stone. Knock on wood for me, something I'm working towards. My ultimate goal is to be a GM at the NBA level. That's why I'm, very appreciative of what the Pacers have given me as an opportunity because I think this is a heck of a breeding ground. It's given me real world experiences, and you talk to anybody across the league, and that's the case. And then yeah, hopefully we'll take those steps, whatever it may be, to kind of take on that next challenge, that next opportunity, and then have somebody else come fill in this role, who's very deserving. Our assistant GM Tim Brown has worked with us for many seasons. He's been the assistant GM since I got the GM title, and I'm really excited, whatever our next steps are. He's ready for that opportunity as well. I think back to when I got my start working underneath Brian Levy, and B always told me, look at this under a different lens. How I'm doing it may not be exactly how you want to be doing it, but like, look at it this way because, if this is what you want to do, you got to be mentally prepared for that. And I think that's the same case here, even just, for me looking at whatever that next step is, like kind of holistically, what would I take from this opportunity to apply to the next, to hopefully be successful as well and make a difference. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Definitely appreciative, both feet in here, but also understanding that, yeah, this is a step on the journey of what hopefully my ultimate career goals are.
You could change one rule in the G League. What would it be?
Well, that's a good question. I'm a stickler for this, so it's kind of a unique one. The 8-second backcourt call in the NBA, they have milliseconds on the clock, and in the G League they don't. I think it's just like a technology thing where a lot of gyms don't have that millisecond. So the only way you can get an 8-second call is if it actually goes to 16 on the clock, and like so our guys can be and it's got to appear on the clock. So a lot of times our guys work their tail off, guarding the full court, getting stops, and then the player's like, I don't know, millimeters or whatever, just crosses half court. In our mind, it's an 8-second violation. but because it doesn't have that milliseconds, like it doesn't count. So that for me, I think just because I'm a rule guy and a stickler on those little details, that kind of bugs me. And I think we've probably been on the raw end of some of those deals when guys have really locked in defensively. That's one that comes to mind. That's probably a stupid one in the grand scheme of things, but it's one that stands out to me. But the cool part too with that, like the G League's open to do, obviously with the single free throw rule and the two coaches challenges that then the NBA adopted. All those different things is cool. One thing I think would be neat if you put a 4-point line in. Obviously, the game shifted some.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see how that works.
You give Tyrese a little bit more points for that shot he took, the dagger he gave last night. Him and Caitlin Clark, another Pacers organization player right there, and that was really cool to see her and see Tyrese stop by for some games this year. How is it that when you were playing at Gamebridge, seeing some of the Pacers and Fever players there?
It's really special. Yeah, I think again it goes back to that family, that family mindset where everyone's here to support each other. We had our fair share of afternoon games, double headers where the Pacers played in the evening, and it was not uncommon for the entire Pacers roster, to show up at our games to support. Our guys, our two ways. If Johnny Furphy or anybody was on assignment with us, and not just players, it was the coaching staff as well, and trickles down from coaches too. It was really, trainers, strength coaches, support staff, anybody. The front office was at every game. So that's really cool. Yeah, and then like you said, Fever players would come. Caitlin came to, I think, at least one of our games, along with some of the other Fever players and Fever staff. It just shows, that it's all part of, this bigger family. Now, it's easy for us to say, hey, I'm trying to go to every Pacers and Fever game that I can, just because the exciting factor and, the product on the court, of course, but for it to be reversed and them, truly buy in and see how important and the part of the, kind of bigger picture that we are, it's really cool.
Colin, you got anything?
Yes. What is your favorite roster that you've put together out of all your years of doing it?
That's a good question.
I know it's kind of a biased question too, but like, try to give us your best thoughts on it.
Yeah. I'll tell you, like I said, I just completed my 4th season as GM, and we've been fortunate we've made the playoffs 3 out of 4, and the one year we didn't, we missed it by. It was a unique situation where another team had to win by a certain amount of points in the last game of the regular season, and unfortunately they did that, so we just missed the playoffs. Even just achieving 3 out of 4 is pretty cool, and something that we again, like I said at the beginning, goal is not just winning, it's developing too. I'm a firm believer, again, back to those winning habits. You can't instill those if you're not winning games. So, we always say, hey, we'd like to qualify for the playoffs at the beginning of the year. That's just part of it. So to be able to do that 3 out of 4 is pretty cool. I think probably partial to the first team I was able to put together. That was a unique year because that was the COVID year, where you can look at it however you want. We still set a franchise record for most call-ups during the season.
Yeah.
And again, it showed the importance of the G League, how we were really here to support the NBA team any way possible. And if our players that we had on our roster weren't NBA ready, then they wouldn't have gotten those opportunities. And they proved themselves. But that was a great team to be around. We saw some great success individually and as a group. That was Justin Anderson, Terry
Used to
Taylor.
play for the Wizards. Yeah.
Yeah. Terry Taylor, Kiefer Sykes. Kiefer went from, he was an Exhibit 10 guy for us, came in and was playing serious minutes in the G League. Next thing we know, a couple nights later, he was the starting point guard against the New York Knicks in Madison Square Garden, and put up a heck of a performance. Terry Taylor had a phenomenal year that year. those are just the first names that come to mind. But Nate Hinton, that was a really special group and a lot of fun to be around, and for that to be my first as GM, to go through the course of a G League season with those players, I'm partial to that group.
Yeah, yeah. What year was you guys picked up the G League Finals MVP? Was that the year before the bubble year, or was that the bubble year?
That was actually the next year. Yeah, Trevlin
Oh,
Kuhn. Trevlin
yeah, yeah,
Kuhn,
yeah.
yeah, he was a two-way with us. Yeah, the previous year he had led RGV to the G League championship, was Finals MVP and League MVP. Yeah, then we had a chance. So that was that next year. And again, that was a really special. That was the first year we had Gabe York. Took Gabe York
Yep.
third overall in the G League draft that year, and he set the league on fire.
Yeah.
And Justin Anderson was back that year, and
Yep.
yeah, it was again, that's why it's so tough. These balls that are here behind me, those are signed by each team that I've had a chance to work with here, and like sometimes I do just kind of sit, you know, grab the ball, just
Spit
kind of
him.
spin it, yeah, just kind of like
Yeah.
look, as a reminder of these high quality players that have come through and have impacted our organization. I said too, it's those relationships. 'Cause I'll still, even last night, I mean, I got texts from quite a few players that have suited up for us over the years. Whether they're playing overseas or they're retired, or playing in the G for a different team. But you still kind of keep those relationships, and I've said it a few times, but that is what it's all about. Just that personal connection side. That's kind of like it's a reminder of, man, this is pretty special.
Yeah. What does minor league sports mean to you?
I think for me, I mean, it's the means to an end. I think it's like I went back, I said like a stepping stone, but it's also a way for so many people to achieve their dreams, because it's a breeding ground for talent across the board, as we've said multiple times. It's the same exact experiences a lot of times as the highest level, but without a lot of the same pitfall components, I guess, or maybe not quite as much pressure, because at the end of the day, there's not millions of dollars on the line. But that's why it's such a great educational tool, because you're thrown in these real world scenarios that you're going to deal with, if you take those steps, regardless of what sport you're in, or what division you're in, you're going through, again, those real life experiences. And having a chance to make learn from your mistakes, without it being absolutely catastrophic. Always not saying that people aren't checking in on our progress and things like that, but but I think there's a little bit more leeway, which is gonna prepare us all tremendously for when we do take that step.
Well, we are a little over an hour here, so we're gonna wrap this up. Chris, I know we didn't cover nearly everything we planned on, so hopefully we can do this again at some point. Schedules permitting and stuff like that. But thank you so much for coming on. We do always close with a closing question. So, what is your favorite memory of just being either as a kid or from your position now of basketball? Like what is your most fondest memory of being around basketball?
Man, that's a good question. Been privy to be around hoops for a very long time. Of course, I think a cool one looking back now. I do have some vivid memories of this, but my dad took me to, like I said, I'm from Maine, so grew up a Celtics fan. My dad took me to my first game at the original Boston Garden, the season before it got torn down. Larry Bird was playing, McHale was on the team, Robert Parrish, and I was 3, I think, or 4. It's probably
Yeah.
more some made up memories from watching some of these, the old Larry highlights and things like that. But I distinctly do remember like being brought into the Garden, and then I remember my dad telling me how special this, it's such a special environment. That stuck with me, and then I was fortunate in college my freshman year. I had an opportunity to help out. It was on the business side, but interning in kind of in-game promotions. And that my freshman year at Emerson was 2008, 2007, 2008. So I was there in the Garden when the Celtics won their championship. that Kevin Garnett, Pierce, Ray Allen. So being able to be in the building for a team, it was helping out on a very small scale, but for a team I was associated with to win the ultimate prize, that's one that sticks out in my mind. That's why it's pretty cool now, fitting that now we're taking a chance. We're in the finals again this year, and certainly not taking it for granted, because that's 2008 was not yesterday for me personally to be in this setting. And it's cool to be able to be contributing, obviously at a higher level now. So it's all part of that journey again. But those are the two memories that stick out to me.
Dang. Well, to follow up with that, you now get to work around Larry Bird. What is that like, going from one of your biggest memories to now working with him and around
Yeah, I
him?
mean, anybody that you talk to from New England, especially kind of the older generations, they worship Larry. In the same way here in Indiana, that's why it's been so cool. I think, coming here, I'm like, I knew him as a Celtic, but then you come here to Indiana and everyone's, he's everything. So that's a really neat component. One of the smartest individuals that I've ever had a chance, to be around, and just kind of to observe him, and his basketball knowledge is impeccable. He can read a room and read a situation unlike any other. Yeah. There's been some pinch me moments, for sure. And I remember, my mom will still tell me, it's kind of a funny one, when I was an intern here. I don't even remember it, but I guess one afternoon I called my dad, and it was the first time Larry called me by name, and I was just like, wow, like, I know you'll appreciate this. Larry Bird just, he called me by name to grab him something, it's just kind of cool. So there's been some pretty cool moments, but yeah, it's cool. Everybody back home, again, from New England, they appreciate it. So the cool factor and just kind of the opportunity to learn from someone at that high level has not been lost on me.
That's cool. Yeah, no, my dad went to Indiana State, so I'm actually house sitting for them right now. So this is not where I'm normally at, but just over there is this huge Indiana State area where he's got a Indiana State Bird jersey and stuff like that. So yeah, the first time I sent him a picture that was taken when he came to a Mad Ants game and was sitting courtside, my dad was like, "I'm really jealous right now," because he's sitting right there. But Colin, what's your favorite basketball moment?
Oh man. Me personally, I think my favorite moment is obviously when the Mad Ants came back from being down like how many
Oh,
points? 36 points?
34.
34 points, yeah. And then one of my all-time favorite players that played, I think his name was DeQuan Jones. Complete absolute powerhouse of a player every single night he played. Those are probably the top memories that I have for working for you guys. So it was great.
Mine would have to be that 34-point comeback was great, because that's
Yeah,
when I got to do my salute to Reggie and looked at the entire charge bench and did the choke, and that was a lot of fun. That's also when Dylan Little, who's normally on this show, got a charge coach to break his clipboard because the heckles were so good. And but no, I just getting to actually work in the G League and working in the NBA after being a short kid that could never, I can't shoot. I'm not, my little league basketball coaches used to say, and I've said this on the show before, that I am a center in a guard's body, and because I would fight for rebounds, but I could never win them because I was shorter than heck. So to actually get to be in the NBA and the G League to do that was a lot of fun. But that's probably my favorite memory, is getting to know you, Chris, and getting to know all of the guys, Steve, Tom, all of that whole staff there. It was great to be a part of that family.
yeah.
Yep. Before we close out, do you have any advice to anybody that wants to get into that, to what you do and stuff like that?
Yeah, real quick too, just say, thanks again for having me on.
Yeah.
Great to see you guys and connect. I look forward to being able to do this again. I think, yeah, advice, dream big, don't be afraid to dream big, but also understand, the importance of of the prep work. I think that's part. You got to put a lot of prep work in if you want to break into this business. Whether that's doing your research on teams or players or whatever the specific kind of line that you want to get into, whether it's scouting, coaching, video, coordinator, whatever it is. You got to put your time in and never overestimate the importance of networking. It's not just building relationships, but it's also nurturing those relationships. You just never know what it's going to lead to. So those are some things that stick out to me.
Cool. All right. Well, before we go, I know we talked about the Blue Devil Fund. Is there a place that if somebody wants to donate that they can go to?
Oh, wow. Well, thank you. Yeah, the easiest way, Venmo. If anybody has Venmo, it's just at bluedevilfund.com or not .com, just at Blue Devil Fund on Venmo, or PayPal. It's bluedevilfund@gmail.com. We're a 501c3 official nonprofit, so donations can be tax deductible. And then the best way, like most small nonprofits, just find us on Facebook. That's where we update the most and also have a lot of details there, how we're contributing in Down East Maine. So thanks, man. I appreciate you bringing that up.
No problem. No problem. Just wanted to make sure because you guys do a lot and wanted to make sure that if somebody can donate or is interested in donating, they knew how. All right. Well, guys, that's all we have. Again, thank you, Chris, for being here. We want to wish you and the entire Pacers organization good luck in the finals from all of us here, because we all feel a very special bond because we still feel part of the family. You guys still make us feel like that. So, till next time, Colin, what do we say?
I actually want to give Chris this time. Do you want to shout anybody out who could be listening to the podcast after it drops?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'll say I know my mom will be tuned in. So hey to Mom from Calais, Maine. She's the biggest supporter for sure.
Awesome.
Awesome. All right. Well, Colin.
Cue the music.
All right. See you guys. Bye.
See ya.
See you guys. Thanks.
Yeah.